Go, I don't want to buy it because I don't have to pay tax on it. Well, guess what? They're not taking 100% of your profit, and they're not taking anything from the initial investment. Get into a position where you're forced because you're making so much freaking money. You're like, all right, Ninja, I need to figure out some good tax write-offs to offset. And the only tax write-offs you should be buying is ones that make you more money after you get to write off the cost. This is disgusting to me. And this is why people need to wake up. BlackRock CEO just said it. We don't got enough money. We're coming for yours. You'll see later today, President Trump saying it, or President Trump's team, hey, we need pension funds. Get ready. Let me ask you this. Sound off, Ninja Nation. We're going to be getting the highest bond yields in our bond portfolio. We're going to be buying up blue chip stocks and getting incredible dividends. The percentages are going to explode during this time. Think 2009. And we're going to be crushing it. A new wave of financial leaders are coming, and they're coming out of this channel. And they call themselves Ninja Nation, a group of people around the world that are prepared and not scared. Have a great day, everyone, and thank you for hitting that subscribe button again. The Economic Ninja is out.
When you start small, a choice becomes a habit, and a habit becomes a value. Teach them to save, they grow to spend with sense.
The money in circulation in our country isn't changing, and when it changes, the government prints additional. So the knowledge that there is always money in circulation, but it depends on which direction it's circulating, depends on what is the economic situation at that time, then tells you money patterns, right? So when we sense, like, we're going to an election year. During election years, we know that business is usually very bad, risk is also very high, and so on and so forth. So what happens is that people start holding money, and people start saving, right? People don't expand businesses, people don't take risks in terms of new investment, people don't ship new products as much as they would, because there's a cycle of how money works. But it doesn't mean that money has reduced in the economy. It simply means that the circulation has actually slowed down. So I always say that when you want to continuously follow money trends, is the theory they keep telling you, and you've been saying there's a comeback to it, that for every shilling someone makes in a capitalist society, someone must lose it, and that's just how it works. I teach you something interesting, and I'll do it in a simple way that it's easy to explain what's currently happening and why taxation in African countries is a gimmick. You shouldn't really worry about the government.
For payment ya bill ya a young boy anaitwa Baby Adrian. Apart from my personal donation, here I'm donating my services as an MC for the fundraiser. Yeah, he has been battling grade 4 glioma, an aggressive brain tumor, and despite enduring 2 brain surgeries, 28 radiotherapy sessions, and countless difficult moments, he has continued to fight with remarkable strength and courage, inspiring even his doctors. Familia yake ilikuwa faced na 5 million in medical expenses, but half of that has already been covered through the support their general well-wishers, and they're now appealing for solidarity and support to help ease the remaining burden. Every contribution, no matter how small, is a step toward kupatia Adrian another chance at life and hope for the future. So mimi pia nitafinya contribution yangu hapo kidogo, and I'm humbly requesting Wadau Fraternity, kama uko able, uko na something you can spare, please rusha hapa kwa details zenye zimewekwa kwa screen. Ukishatuma, please just send a text to the number, sema hii ni ya Wadau, and nitafika ni represent. Many thanks. Tutazama kwa show. Hey Wadau, guess who's back? Ed Thiongo manze. Wale wamekuwa kiuliza Ed Thiongo should be back on the show. Our friend Ed Thiongo tumemanage kumpata tena, and he's back and right on time. Tutaingia pale kwa finance bill kidogo, but kwa economic ideas ndio I believe tutaanza. Karibu sana.
Asante.
So we can just get right into it. Unasema hii utopia that we imagine ati equal opportunities, everyone should have money. That's not a good idea.
Yeah, it's not a good idea. In fact, if you look at economic principles, there's a level of unemployment that is also good for the economy.
Yeah? Kwa hivyo ni uongo. We lie to people when we tell people we can beat unemployment, let's create opportunities. Creating those opportunities, unasema is a bad idea.
It's a bad idea. In fact,
Uh-huh.
we look at global, even those countries that are really, really ahead of us, many
Yes.
years ahead of us,
Yes.
there is no still unemployment is still there.
Uh-huh.
They still have debt. They still have poverty like we do.
Yes.
And therefore, the economic system isn't designed to be self-sustaining in a utopic way, as Africans imagine we need to.
Uh-huh.
It is not built.
Yes.
It is not built for debt-free living.
Uh-huh.
So, because what I was telling you is that anytime you increase productivity in an economy, you are also pushing inflation. And therefore, it is not in the best interest of any economy to have productivity levels that exceed the strategic intention of that particular economy. So take, for example, if all of a sudden, for some reason, everybody has money, basic commodities like tea, like bus fare, like electricity, like bread, start becoming expensive. And unfortunately, what I told you last time is that for every shilling you make, someone must lose it. And commerce, and then you had a comeback that you tell me what the comeback was. And the way commerce is designed, because of how capitalism works, the rate at which people accumulate and others lose is not the same. And therefore, when you have an inflationary economy, it means that the ones below start suffering for the increase of productivity. And therefore, most governments are continuously trying to make sure that the level of inflation and productivity is also controlled to make sure that everybody can actually afford essential products.
If I'm getting you correctly, what you're saying is lazy people are also doing their part. As in, too much productivity is not good for the economy.
Yeah. Isn't it why when productivity goes on an all high, what does the government do to interest rates?
They increase the interest rates to mop up the money from the economy. And I would assume this, able to explain it, Kiyogo. Let's first of all define productivity. Like assuming our unemployment was down to, let's say, for example, 8 out of 10 graduates have a well-paying job. Think for us what that means for the economy. Why is that bad?
So when, say, 80% of the population is earning a decent living,
Yes.
for example, it would essentially mean that most of us can actually, and I told you, it's not even about how much they're earning, it's how much credit then they can afford, right? So human beings are wired to get things from the future to enjoy them right now. And that's why it's easier for you to borrow, to build, than to save, to build. Nobody
It's
saves.
easier or it's better.
It's easier. It's easier. Show me one person who's actually saved 1,000 until they build their dream house.
Others say, ukipata kidogo, and I have someone who told me that they have a house worth 30 million bob, but they've never had ati accumulative like 3 million. Imekuwa ni, mimi nikipata 100k namwaga mchanga. If I get 50k, I pay the fundis. Hivyo, kidogo. See, that's more like saving.
And there are exceptions. But how many are able to do that? Assume we were to do that, the whole economy was to do that. That person who's saving that little money he's getting, his employer isn't saving a little to pay them. So there can't be creation of wealth without credit. Even if you don't take it, someone else is taking it to pay you, right? So if that person doesn't take credit, there's nothing to save, right? So trying to circle back and see that 80% of the economy is performing really well.
Yes.
What automatically happens is that more people can access credit. And because more people can access credit, they start doing dream projects, buying fancy cars they could not afford. They buy better homes. They set up businesses, and so on and so forth. So if more people now are living an affluent life, what happens to the prices? They start going up.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Start going up. And if the prices get to a place where only a few can afford, because again, and this is the thing I was telling you, that it's not possible for us to have the same amount of money, because for those 80%, 80 graduates out of 10, 8 out of 10 who now have good jobs, for them to, the salary they're making, they're paying someone else to give them something, right? If you sell cars,
Yes.
they'll come to you, give you money, give them money, and you sell the car to them. Meaning, for every shilling they're making at employment, they're losing it to you for them to you see, Kings, the way society is structured, and it's not just here.
Yes.
We work hard for better things in life, right?
Mm-hmm.
You say living within your means is a factor of what your means is. You see, unfortunately, it's just how things are. The more human beings earn,
Mm-hmm.
the more they want things from the future, right? So, for example, if you earn 300K, you're unlikely to take your children to a public school where the school fees is free, right? And I keep coming back and saying that saving as a culture is an important conversation, but the more important conversation is actually credit, not saving. What extra income does for you is that it gives you access to credit that others cannot afford, right? So if you look at, for example, countries like the East, that we're using that example, look at the level of credit that the citizens there have. The difference between them and us is that you earn 300K or I earn 100K in China, for example, but the credit access that I have is 4 or 5 times of what you're actually able to get, right? Because credit goes hand in hand with what we're discussing, interest rates and how they're managed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we could intend to be a saving culture, to have a saving culture. And by the Kenyans actually save, anyone who's employed is actually saving in NSSF somehow. People are doing what they can. But you see, what is likely to bring the cost of products down? Is it the factors of production that actually eventually drive consumer behavior are actually not growing as productivity grows?
My count, you've given a very good example.
Mm.
Yeah, if you earn 300,000 shillings, you are unlikely to take your children to a public school. Is this where we get to something that was said on this show with Dr. Muthomi Thiankolu of citizen responsibility, right? You pay taxes and you are entitled to better quality of service, which means, and I believe this, in fact, I buy this, that what can we call it? Like the public schools in Kenya, if resources were to be managed properly, the public schools should be able to offer the same quality of education as private schools. So if you're earning 300,000 shillings, you're paying taxes well, right? If utilized properly, you do not need to take your kids to private schools.
So it takes us back to what I've just said, that the saving culture is a factor of the factors of production and how they're managed by the country you're in, right? So if education is mismanaged, people are working hard not to use government-sponsored education, yes, and so forth.
Yes.
The difference between someone in Kenya and someone in China is that as your salary increases, you're unlikely to unplug yourself from government amenities because they actually work, right? And therefore, if your expenses remain where they were when you were earning 100K, and you're earning 300K, then you have bigger room for you to start saving, right? But in our country, because of this, the government is managing factors of production. Some of these factors of production include things like land. And you look at where all these things come from, it starts from how we manage capital, how we manage labor, all those things. When you put them together, and then you add now a spice of corruption, you find that in Africa, we're not working towards saving. We're running away from government-sponsored things because they are tied within the history. Not true, but the fundamentals of how the economy works is that the higher the productivity, the higher the inflation. It's across the globe. So it's not to say that it's a bad thing. It's a good thing, because what I was telling you is that the way the debt cap works is that we are continuously growing debts as productivity rises, and therefore as debt grows and productivity rises, what we are unlocking is extra credit. We become more creditworthy. To give an example of that person who's now earning a salary, you get your first job and you're earning, say, 50K or 30K. The amount of credit you can access from your bank is maybe 10K, for example. So the more you work in the organization you're in, the more you get promoted and you move to 100K. The debt, the credit you can access goes to 150K, for example. So the more productive the economy is, the more the citizens of that country can actually access credit. And I'm telling you that inflation follows productivity is because the more people are able to access credit, the more products and goods they can actually consume in an economy. The consumption goes up, right? And because prices will go up with this consumption, it is not usually in the benefit, it's not the benefit, it's not usually in like the long-term strategy of the government of controlling inflation. Because when you don't control inflation, they're telling you that social disorder is likely to happen because of increasing. So I'm not saying that it's a bad thing necessarily for this many people to earn whatever they should earn, but it's just a reality of how economies work across the globe. That inflation is a big consideration for most governments, and inflation is the reason why credit interest rates are managed up and down. But however, a conversation around what it means for these 80 people to now be able to access these things is a conversation of how much more can they do, not with what they're earning, with the extra credit they've unlocked. We saw it during the Kibaki government. The more credit was available, the more stimulation there was in the economy. People could actually borrow money and do projects at home, and they were working, could create more employment, and so on. And that is actually what you want in an economy. And that is in a scenario whereby productivity and debt are growing at a rate that is commensurate. Not that one is actually growing faster than the other. Because then when there's higher debt and productivity, leads to inflation.
Okay. I'm tempted to say that the more I learn about how money works, the more I'm tempted to actually say that the whole finance system is founded on a lie. I'll give an example. I'm watching a documentary that makes a submission. When Trump comes on as president, they block they block immigration, illegal immigration, and they increase deportation. And then an unintended consequence. The consequence starts to be projected that the American economy may be in trouble because these illegal aliens hold a very, very important part of the economy, right? They hold a very, very serious in terms of the jobs, what people would call odd jobs, like the survival jobs. And it really is a big contributor to the American economy, and the estimates were around $100 billion annually, okay? So when I look at that, I go back to how are the economies founded? The economies of the imperial governments like Britain, Portugal, Spain. And when you go into that, you find that slave trade, actually, the banning of slave trade, by banning slave trade, a lot of economies took a dent because of labor as a factor of production. They got free and forced labor. So on the other hand, now when the slavery gets banned, still you have to pay people for them to work for you. And this is money that you are getting, as in you didn't have to spend. Slaves were part of your property. You had to milk the best out of it, right? So when these economies are founded on slavery, by kicking out illegal aliens, the American economy will take a dent. Me, I'm tempted to believe yote is founded on a lie, yote kabisa.
So there are theories. For example, the theory we explained is a theory of economic theory called the Marxist theory, where Karl Marx tries to explain how exploitation, how everything we call value in society is based out of exploitation of labor. And here it's a statement says, if I tell a carpenter to make a seat for me and makes it at 8 shillings or 10 shillings, then I go to the market and sell it for 100 shillings. It is similar to what you just explained. But as I'm paying him what he deemed to be his value, the success of my economic structure is factored on exploiting that labor. So, and from a Marxist point of view, it is correcting that imbalance that should be the purpose of the economy and government. Is it? And we have a bit of it in almost all economies, where you have regulated wage. The government is continuously pushing the regulated wage from a certain percent, like it's been pushed up to 12% after Labor Day. it tries to address that component of that economic theory that it is true. And actually, there's a lot of truth to it, isn't it? That the value someone sees in the work they've done is not necessarily the value that the recipient of that value for free trade actually sees. And without that first person doing the initial work of building that value, then there can't be an economy. And when you go back to transatlantic slave trade, there's essentially the same reasoning. Therefore, economic growth in such a model can be driven by continuously driving the value of labor in every economy. So we look at why, for example, companies take their manufacturing to China. Same reason.
Yes.
But the value of exploiting labor in that country is significantly lower than exploiting labor in the US, right? Because the minimum wage in the US is significantly higher than the minimum wage in China, right?
Yes.
So, an economy built on that model will many times thrive on the government continuously regulating wage. So one good example is if you take the example of slave trade and look at what were the impacts of banning slave trade. It wasn't that they could no longer manufacture goods. That was not the issue. The issue was they could still manufacture the same goods, but the value of the labor was significantly higher than it used to be.
Yes, because of the industrial revolution.
Correct.
Yes.
And if you now pay people who are asking for, who are pricing themselves higher than the slaves, of course, the value of exploiting that labor is higher, meaning you have to go to the market at a higher price. Unfortunately, price elasticity will not allow you to go beyond a certain place. And therefore, this combination, the argument is this combination of balancing labor exploitation versus market prices usually builds an equilibrium that creates economic growth. Yes. And that is just one. There are many economic theories that you can look at. The guys will have the classical economic theory and they argue about the forces of demand and supply being the reason why economies work and so forth. But that's an essential. It's very essential because it goes back to what we discussed the last time I was here about factors of production and labor being one of the essential factors of production and how it's managed influences economic output.
Yes. So how long can we? So now that we've established that, we have the story of the finance bill. The government wants to raise money, and I've told you, Offset, that I feel like we are in a sinking ship. Why? We are milking a cow that has not eaten. We are producing nothing. And I see another documentary about the history, and this was actually very interesting because this guy was making a case that Singapore will collapse very soon because of what? Singapore produces nothing. And his explanation was plausible when he juxtaposed that with I believe is it Venice or where it's Venice where the Phoenicians were. I think it's Venice. It was a cross trade. It was a trading Venice. They were not producing anything. They were just brokers, right? And once something comes up to cut out the middleman, you're done. So he said the same of Dubai. He gave the same projection of Venice, and he gave a projected timeline. When you say 200 years, 300 years, it sounds like a lot, but he actually makes a case that maybe this civilization was wiped out because they're producing nothing. In Kenya, my opinion is, when you look at the so-called factories that we had an oil refinery, sugar tena iko na mambo yake, textile, mitumba, we are importing second-hand clothes, which someone else told me something very interesting, that it's not actually